What would you like to do if money were no object? How would you really enjoy spending your life?
Welcome to the Datsusara podcast.
If you say that getting the money is the most important thing, you will spend your life completely wasting your time. You'll be doing things you don't like doing in order to go on living, that is, to go on doing things you don't like doing.
So we are here with James Driskill. Some of you may know him, although you have only a couple of interviews out there. So I heard you originally on the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show because I sponsor that one. Josh is I don't know, I thought he was an interesting kid doing some fun stuff. So yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's great.
yeah, it was great to hear you on there. And I thought, how have I not heard of this guy before?
I
And
also did the Roll Radio with Thomas, which was also a really great one.
Yes, actually, I just listened to that as well because I went, oh, he was on a, yeah, so it's kind of
And
cool.
I've done a couple of cannabis podcasts,
That I ran
but
into just today because I was like, there must be something else. And I'm looking at, like, I saw some of your competition footage from your jiu-jitsu competitions. And then I went, oh, he's on some of these things. So, yeah, so we have a whole lot of things in common. And as we go through your history a little bit, it's going to be interesting, hopefully, for folks, how many times that I should have run into you and didn't. But
there's so many stories like that because people come through to take lessons from Hickson, and
Mhm.
I'm there, and they're like, man, like when were you at Hickson's and this year's and that's I was there too. Like, how the hell did we not run into each other? It's like, well, you probably only came like once or twice, but I was there, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. So for people who, I'm assuming most people listening to this will probably be into jiu-jitsu, and I won't need to explain to them who Rickson Gracie is and what a nuke is. But long story short, Rickson Gracie, arguably the best, certainly the best jiu-jitsu practitioner probably of all time. I would say maybe best fighter in a lot of ways in general, just as a human being, because he was doing this at a time when he's doing these no hold bars fights with which I think I don't know, that's part of why I really like his style of jujitsu. And it's very interesting how actually most of the people that have come in contact with him have become practically like disciples, very much want to preserve what he was trying to teach, and it's kind of special and unique. And you have a special and unique position now in that you're pretty much his full-time uke, which is it's going to be interesting. We'll get into how you ended up there eventually. But I would love to just kind of start back at like when did you start getting into, say, martial arts? Like, did you have other career paths and things in life that kind of got shifted or cut off and moved into martial arts or?
Totally. Yeah. It's a windy path, like most
Mhm.
probably are, but I think my parents put me in that stuff as a little kid in traditional martial arts and things. And I think I got in a lot of trouble in there. I was a little bit of a hellraiser, and I don't think I really started taking it seriously until I was a teenager.
Mhm.
And I was somewhat training myself, somewhat having kind of fight club kind of things with buddies, getting tough, not necessarily getting good.
Mhm.
Uh, and did some like boxing and Muay Thai and stuff as a teenager, and then I was lucky. I took a little bit of a break to be kind of a degenerate and do drugs and kind of lost my way for a few years as a teenager. And I was lucky that some friends of mine introduced me to a friend of theirs who was a martial artist. And, we met at like a rave party or something. And this guy is doing backflips off the wall and doing like
Wow.
taekwondo kicks in the air and stuff. And I was like, whoa. So I go over there and I'm like, hey, and I'm doing stuff, and we're kind of like showing each other all the stuff that we know. And that kind of blossomed into a friendship, if you will, where we just kind of got together almost every day, and we'd beat each other up. But he actually had some technique that he was sharing with me, and it was a good time. We kind of traditionally we would watch an episode of Dragon Ball Z, pad up, go in the parking lot of his apartment building, beat each other up, and then go watch another episode. And that was our kind of daily practice. And
That's awesome. I love that.
it's so funny, like he and I trained together so much, and you probably experienced this. We actually got into a real fight one time, and we couldn't really damage each other because we were so well accustomed to each other's attacks and tricks and whatnot. We just got tired and quit.
Yeah. That's pretty fun. Yeah, I've definitely, I mean, well, we experience that often just in, rolling around with the same people every day at your gym or whatnot. You always run into those people who it's just like back and forth and nobody's going to win that one, but it's going to be
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, I love those. I love those training partners that we come up with that keep almost the exact pace that you do. It's rare, I can think of like only a really small, less than a handful of people like that we just sort of progress so that at any given day it wasn't clear who was going to get who. We
Yeah.
just back and forth for years. And it was amazing, like progression for all of us like that.
I love that. I am working with a friend of mine now on because actually, sadly, we're still both blue belts. That's a long story for me, but we're working on trying to get better at open guard specifically because for me at least, I always thought of that as more of just a transition point. I'm like, I just want to suck them in, or I'm gonna get up and stand up, but especially Matt Thornton, who runs SBG, very much says, hey, when you're in blue belt, you need to get a really good open guard game. So our instructors are kind of pushing us on that. Anyway, so we're working, but it is an intense battle, both him and I working positional sparring, trying to do it because it's just like no, I mean, it's so hard for either one of us to get, to move through that. It's like trying to pass that on either side is just
Is
it.
that
It's
is that
super.
where you're training at SBG with Matt?
I'm at SBG Texas at the moment. It's
Okay.
so I'm with Michael Hines, who is underneath John Frankel, and then yeah, up through that. But yeah, it's been interesting because actually I started at an SBG. I started at SBG Berkeley, which at the time was called Modern Combatives, and that was actually when the instructors when we started they were all I think they were all blue belts, but they were black belts in judo. And so we were more of an MMA gym, and that's kind of yeah, that's basically where I started because I didn't even want to do jiu-jitsu at the time, and then I got punched in the face enough doing kickboxing, and I went, yeah, this sucks. Maybe I should learn how to deal with jiu-jitsu because I'm not going to be Chuck Liddell and just get up every time and be all right. So yeah, that's kind of how that went. But yeah, I started there, and then it's funny because yeah, now many years later, and I took a very long break from jiu-jitsu until recently, and then I end up back in an SBG. But it's been really nice this time because they very much because of John and Matt and they have a lot of influence from Henry. I've noticed these days, and which is great. And Henry's always been. I've known him for a while. Always been really my favorite instructor, and so often I go in and I might be studying Henry's some of Henry's things that he either showed me or things that I find online through his courses. And then I'll go into the gym like, oh, what are we working on today? Oh, the exact thing I was just looking at. It's happened a number of times because they're bringing in a lot of what he's taught them and just the general, really the things coming down from Rickson. And I love that because that's really what I got into. I wanted to learn a martial art and a self-defense thing. I did not. The sports side of it doesn't interest me nearly as much. I think that's fine and great, but it's not really what I'm there for. So I really appreciate the way that we train has been really nice.
I love to train sport. I think it's super fun and entertaining and stuff. But I love to train sport more with guys who don't do a lot of the modern jiu-jitsu stuff.
Mm,
Just because it does simulate more of what you would encounter if some kind of crazed person attacked you at the gas station or whatever.
right.
And I also think it's super duper fun to try to figure out how to deal with a worm guard or a bolo or whatever the things, the new age kind
Sure.
of things that they're doing. I find that kind of, in the moment problem solving really intriguing and fun. But I see that more as like playing tennis than I
Yeah,
do learning to fight. Like this is a fun activity that certainly it doesn't have zero value for a fight. It's definitely valuable, but not as valuable as the guy who's just trying to push me off of him and stand up or employing more fundamental basic kind of stuff. Like
right.
not even a person in the street would know, but it's like the street person with a little bit of technique is kind of the perfect opponent to meet on a day-to-day basis if your goal, or perfect training partner, I mean, if your goal is to be able to deal with that street situation.
Yeah, I think that is a good thing, and I enjoy trying to apply, yeah, the foundational, the basic concepts, but to someone who's doing one of these, yeah, different kind of fancy sport thing, like you said, like they're pulling berimbolo or whatever. I've always enjoyed like, okay, can my very, very simple jujitsu still find a way to deal with this? Do these concepts still apply even in this what seemingly might be a very complicated and different situation?
And
So.
in those scenarios, if somebody's doing something, like I remember the first time somebody started to set up a worm guard on me, and I'd never been exposed to it. I'd seen, Keenan talk about it, and I'd seen some little bits of it in tournaments, but I didn't understand it at all. And so I just kind of sat there and didn't move and let him wrap everything exactly how he wanted to and didn't really resist until I felt like now he's starting to try to move me. And at that point, I was like, okay, can I keep my base? Can I maintain a proper angle? Can I deny connections or create them where I need to? Can I find leverage and deny his, and all these kind of things. Uh, that's a super fun game, and for the most part, I think I mean, we people that focus a lot on base and basics
Hmm.
can kind of overcome that stuff just by keeping the balance or whatever. And definitely Keenan's going to sweep me for sure, but I don't know. It's just a good time, like figuring that stuff out. But I prefer, like you, instead of them wrapping my lapel around my leg and my arm and my foot and all 50 ways, I prefer them just to try to touch my face.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, that adds a level of difficulty that's, just as difficult or maybe more, depending on how fast they're touching.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm usually pretty good with dealing with all of it. The only time I think I find myself getting a little bit annoyed and going, this is ridiculous, is when I'm trying to roll with someone and they're trying to slowly untuck my lapel and screw around.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you doing? Come on, man. Like, that's when it drives me crazy and I just want to punch people. I'm like, come on, man. You're not doing this on the street, working this guy's jacket out. It's,
Yeah.
but, but it's still it's amusing. It just gives me more motivation to do better in that situation. Um,
I
but
guess we need to, I mean, I guess for me, like the self-defense training, I think is the most fun when we can find a way to gamify it like
Mm,
sport jujitsu, So, well, like there's so many fun games to play in sport jujitsu where there's a clear winner and loser and all this stuff, but that's not quite so evident sometimes in the self-defense training because the consequences and the stakes are higher. Nobody wants to go to work with a loose tooth or a bloody nose or a black eye or whatever. And so finding ways to gamify the self-defense where it is more fun, where it is more clear about a winner, where holding the parameters, kind of like the CLA guys are starting to do a sport, and these guys didn't create any of that. That shit's been around forever. Rickson was training us CLA style or whatever since I was a white belt. Not
mm,
purely that, like a hybrid kind of thing.
sure.
But for the self-defense aspect, having those kind of limitations and constraints and stuff for that, I think are really, really effective to keep it from either escalating too far or just staying in this choreographed, oh, I'll let you do it. Oh, I'll lean forward for you so you can hip toss me. Oh, I'll like, I won't shrug my shoulders or anything. You can grab my head, whatever kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, so and going back a little bit, so when you were younger and you make this friend and you guys are beating each other up and all that, then at some point, so I know because I know that you've done this, you started kind of, well, dojo storming, but in a very polite manner, which I find really interesting because that's to me like if you're doing it politely, you're off seeking the truth, and I'm wondering where you because the years that what was that around 2000 and something?
That was probably in the late night. I don't know.
Well,
Yeah,
had you seen?
no, actually 2000, early 2000s. Yeah.
Okay, so had you seen any UFCs yet? Were you on to that
Oh,
sort
yeah,
of? Okay,
definitely.
yeah, yeah,
I used
interesting.
to. when I was in like grade school and I knew that I had beef with somebody and there might be a fight the next day, I would watch UFC fights to like get ideas of what I'm gonna do before I went to school the next day. I
That's
remember
awesome.
like studying, like kind of nervous, like fuck, I don't know, this guy's pretty tough. He wants to fight, at the bus stop or whatever.
Yeah. Well, back then that definitely gave you like a good like, well, okay, what are the possibilities? It was such a wide range of, you could say, oh, if this guy had trained in this or that, what might happen? But I think, you like so many of us went looking for, okay, what's the truth? What's the, what really works? And so that's interesting. But you went to what various style, different types of dojos and everything, and just started just
Everything different, yeah, all different kinds. Um, yeah, and I think I told the story about the Kung Fu school where they beat us up pretty bad, and that was a funny one. And then the Jiu-Jitsu school eventually, like choked me out, and I was like, oh man, that was like the moment where I had no no chance, no shot. I didn't get any shots off. I didn't do
yeah.
any damage. It was just like at least at the other places I'd get some good hits in, even if I
Yeah.
lost.
Yeah.
So that was really, like, oh, I need that. I need to add that. That's
Yeah.
missing.
So did you immediately start training jujitsu? I forget after you.
No, I didn't. I was still living in Texas. I didn't really start training jiu-jitsu until I met Rickson in LA in like 2003.
Hmm.
Um, so
Yeah, how did that
I
happen?
think I just wasn't ready. I was still coming out of this sort of immature teenage phase of partying and stuff
Mm.
and getting back into this martial lifestyle or whatever. But I had my ups and downs and pitfalls and relapses and things like this, with drugs
Yeah.
and kind of shady folks and things when I was younger.
Yeah. Well, that took
But
me.
once I really dove into, Hickson's school, then all that stuff just sort of fell by the wayside. It would come up from time to time, and then I would suffer immensely for it because my training partners would beat the shit out of me when I came in after smoking cigarettes and drinking and partying. And,
Yeah.
it's just like, oh my God, this is not worth it.
Yeah, it's funny how training hard and jujitsu that'll straighten you out because you do not want to go in and just get your ass kicked, for
Yeah.
screwing up and drinking a little too much the night before or whatnot. Even I, during my a bit of like an 8 year break when I had moved to the valley and whatnot, and then I started training again, and I wasn't drinking a lot, but I was drinking enough that it was really helpful to get me away from that. It was a functional addiction, but it was nonetheless an addiction, and it just losing sleep and everything not an option, especially at my age. I'm 49 now. I can't. It's hard enough to recover from training the way I like to anyway. And so, losing a little bit of sleep because I drank too much, just no.
Totally. Yeah. And we weren't like Hickson wouldn't let us have water during training and stuff like this. It was like kind of this. So you're going in dehydrated to start this training for an hour with no water break. I mean, you just can't even open your mouth at the end. It's so
Yeah.
sticky.
That's interesting though. So once you meet Hickson and then you kind of just something changed and really got you to kind of pursue that.
I mean, I got some kind of goal that was much more achievable than win street fights and
Mm,
competition. It was like, okay, go win some competitions. Well, shit, if I want to win these competitions, I need to be in shape. I need to be well trained. I need to be devoting time to this. I can't win these things. I forgot that at one point. I won like everything for a while in white and blue belt, tons and tons of tournaments and gold medals and whatever. And then at purple belt, I think I got a little cocky and I met my wife and I had already won all kinds of stuff and felt like I was pretty great. And so I think like I met her shortly before the Worlds one year.
uh,
And she and I were just kind of staying up all night, partying. Like I wasn't really training. I would just go teach a class. Sometimes I would go in and teach the class, hadn't slept, like just
yeah.
go in up for 24 hours already kind of things. Maybe still a little bit, whatever. Don't tell Hickson.
Yeah.
And 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 then I went and competed in the Worlds, and I just like gassed out first round while my new girlfriend is in the stands watching me after I run my mouth about how good I am. And it's just like sitting there wheezing, stuck in an omoplata, trying to figure out what the hell I'm gonna do. It's like, oh, that's so embarrassing. And that reminded me, okay, you can't get away with this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. So was jiu-jitsu sort of your full-time career at that point or
No, I had like a little handyman business.
mhm.
So I would go, fix little things here and there for people. And I think actually at that time, at that purple belt time, I think jujitsu was becoming my full-time thing. I was phasing out of the handyman business and
Mm.
getting into teaching private lessons. And I
Ah,
was already teaching at Hickson's since blue belt,
mm.
like starting with the kids and then
Oh, cool.
emergency third replacement teacher kind of thing for the adults or whatever.
Mm.
Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of devoted a lot more time into that.
I'm curious, as far as like teaching goes, did you feel like you wanted to teach from kind of early on, or did you have to kind of push yourself to do that? Because I'm sort of at a point where I could do some instructing right now. I do some assisting with the kids' classes, but
Mhm.
I don't, public speaking and all that just tends to get to me. So, but I know I would learn better probably if I was teaching, and I know enough from just the mat time alone now. I could probably be useful at our gym, but just
I
haven't.
think I think I always loved teaching. I think it's hard to teach some curriculum that you're not really confident in, and I think all of us,
Yeah.
if we're taking on a role of a teacher and our teacher is saying, "Hey, teach this," and I'm like, I don't really feel I haven't taught that very often. We all get
Yeah.
butterflies and stuff about doing that. But if I were to ask you, teach me your best move, you'd probably rattle off forever, and be
Mm,
like, oh
true.
yeah, this and then that, and then this guy's gonna do it, and you're gonna feel really confident. So I
Right.
think it just comes with the territory there of how how much have I battle tested this
Mm,
where I feel pretty good about anybody saying, "What if?" Well, then that, But we got to get stumped by a few what ifs
yeah.
when we start teaching, and those what if scenarios for me at least were really intolerable. I didn't like discovering that I didn't know something about whatever technique or something. So I would immediately go find Hickson or one of the teachers there at the time and figure it out. And if I couldn't find them, I would troubleshoot it myself, and
Yeah.
find those answers because I wanted to have the answers for them. I didn't want to look dumb.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that insecurity drove my obsession for learning all these details. Kind of a
Mm.
silver lining for a dysfunction, I guess.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I hadn't like for some reason that part hadn't occurred to me as much. I mean, I'm already doing that to some extent for my own problem solving, but I think yeah, when one gets put into a teaching position, especially in jiu-jitsu where it's very like, it either works or it doesn't kind of thing. I could see how that would push you to go, all right, somebody asked me a question about this move, whatever, couldn't answer it, gonna go research, figure this out. Like that could be a real way to drive your learning even further with that. Not just getting better at the things you already know and teaching them, but really figuring out just going way more in depth, which yeah, actually, for me, that might be a good one. Better than spending my time trying to research how to argue with people online or something about certain topics. So,
Yeah. But I feel bad, I feel compassion for the modern day jiu-jitsu student because back in my day there weren't very many resources.
mm,
And so I could only go to authorities, whether it would be Hickson or one of his black belts or watching, there weren't instructionals really back then there, but there was YouTube footage of tournaments. And so I
mm,
could just go scour through YouTube and find scenarios of whatever I was dealing with. What if the guy puts a hand on your shoulder while you're trying to pass the knee cut? Oh, fuck, I don't know. Let me go watch, hundreds of hours of YouTube videos and find every example of this. And what do they do? That kind of thing. But in the process of that, I think those days I could see a more clear consensus, whereas now you've got 500 opinions on every different position,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of them are extraneous and unnecessary, and they're solving problems that aren't really problems, and
Hmm.
it's only a problem because you didn't really understand how to solve the previous problem.
Right.
And so we get into these habits of collecting thousands and thousands of moves to solve every little novel problem instead of conceptually approaching each one with these ideas of base and connection and leverage and timing and breadth and
Mm.
distance management and these kind of things, that are so important. And when you really understand those concepts and train with those in mind all the time, solving these novel problems in real time, I think becomes way more fun and
Yeah,
successful.
absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's there go the dogs. I think that's one of the things that I love so much about all of you guys who have kind of come from, from Hickson is that yeah, you keep things, it's simple, it's concepts, but you can go, obviously super in depth on any of them. But it's very interesting to me that everybody who has kind of come into contact with him, well, not everybody, but a lot of people have just absolutely, that's become their you guys are all very concerned with preserving what he was teaching. I mean, you've got, like I said, like you yourself, Henry, even I didn't know about Chris Burns before, but he cracks me up, so I've been watching his stuff too. But
Good
it's all,
character.
it really made a huge impact, and it's just, I don't know, it's great stuff because I already liked that a lot. I much prefer, I don't have the mind or the time to go through 1,000 different technical things and keep adding to my hold on one second.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, dogs, Astrid, stop. All right, door's getting shut. Probably have to open it for her when she wants to come back in. Anyhow.
I think I think Hickson these days is teaching the best he's ever taught, like
Mhm.
because of the diminishing of his physicality and because of the Parkinson's,
Yeah.
he's had to adapt and adjust his teaching style and such. And I think it is so much more clear and concise
Mm.
and just beautiful. And what he's sharing is so simple, and he's really, kind of narrowed it down and figured a lot of this stuff out even more, and so now as I've been with him, he's showing me details that are different than
Mm.
when I was training with him back in the day, and he's improved these techniques and even just the way that he's delivering them. When I was coming up, there was not very many people in the room that weren't savages.
Hmm.
Like we were a bunch of people who just loved to bang, like just
Yeah,
fight.
yeah. There were challenge fights and all sorts of fun things. Yeah.
So I wonder how many students came through and left, and then we didn't even notice because we didn't care back then.
Yeah.
And those people needed us, they needed this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, at some point I didn't really need it anymore. I was just doing it because it's fun, and a lot of us like that. Plenty of technique to defend ourselves on the street against 90% of people.
Right.
Um, and so now his approach is so much more gentle, and seeing him this like samurai warrior badass dude acting in this way that's so gentle and caring and compassionate and whatever the student needs, if so he was always really tuned into teaching someone in the way that they needed, which
Mm.
was always really inspiring to me. If this person is a little bit shy, he would teach them some cool submission or flashy move or something. And if they were like a little too aggressive or something, he might teach them some breathing techniques.
Uh,
If they were maybe having some problems at home or something, he might teach them some punch blocking things or whatever. Like it was so fascinating how he would always know what was most beneficial to any student at any time.
mm.
But now he's so focused on the weakest ones and the ones that don't have that savagery in them and the ones that aren't ready yet to tolerate someone grabbing their head and yanking them around and trying to put them on the ground really hard, and seeing that has helped me as a teacher a ton to be able to share techniques that are inherently violent with people who are really averse to violence
Hmm.
and helping those people become a little more tolerant of that chaos and stuff and feel a little more confident in that environment feels great, of
Yeah.
course.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I've heard of, I mean, everybody who's talked about meeting him has somehow he's reached them in some way. And like you said, yeah, taught them kind of what they needed. And I think that's one of the things that makes I don't know, so many people, they just, once they've met him and been and trained with him a little, it's like there's just such a strong connection. And he really sees something, that's interesting. That is definitely, that's a gift. So yeah, that's something special. I know that's something a lot of people need to and rarely get because you just don't find a lot of people that can do that. And like you said, there's a whole lot of people, even really myself. Like one of my biggest problems is I tend to I tend to fall back into being very reactive in everything I do, including, jujitsu, where so I ended up just being an absolute guard whore for so many years because I just felt like, oh, everybody else is more aggressive and stronger, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to end up in guard. So, all right, I'm just going to default to that. But that also led to many years of just not really training intelligently and just you don't want to be on bottom all the time. I mean, if you get a great best guard in the world, it's not you don't want to you want to get up and be on top if you can be. So yeah, it's been tough even now, like training my aggressiveness on that front to be, take the initiative is tricky. And I see it in my daughter too. She's training now and she is not the initiative taking type. So of course, I see all my flaws in anything she's got that's similar in her that drives me crazy. What are you doing? Get on top. Get out. What are you doing in guard all the time? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, to be fair, I've rarely met a blue belt that has a good open guard or a good guard at all, really.
Ah,
I mean, my opinion, I think it's easily the most complex piece of jujitsu. The
yeah,
open guard has, the way I see it, the most variation in possible things that can happen. And so
true. It's a
you
lot.
got to have a lot more knowledge and understanding, and there's so much gravity and weight and mobility and speed going on in there versus a mount position or a side control position or whatever, So
Sure.
I
Yeah.
find purple belt is where people normally start to develop that, and the blue belts are still trying to, you know, maybe learn to impose a little of their will anywhere they can,
Yeah.
and still trying to master escaping from the pins and stuff.
Right, right. Yeah. I mean, I luckily did develop with all my obsession in the guard. I mean, I developed a very good, I think, closed guard. And some people, would call me, even in when I was a white belt, they were like, wow, a closed guard's something else, but the rest of your game is like, what are you doing? But so that's good. But yeah, the open guard is a whole nother bag, really. So but it's been interesting. It's always fun. At least I know where I need to work on things once like somebody, yeah, when I start getting crap about we get to have a better open guard game, like, all right, cool. I've got something very, very clear I need to work on. So I appreciate when I have those things. Whereas when I was
You
training,
can always keep in mind, like, do I need to work on this a bunch, or am I solving a problem that is not really a problem for me? And
mm,
that, do I need to know how to uh, chase after you and attack you from open guard, or I just need to know how to hold you away until I can stand up? Like,
yeah, I think what I've been trying to focus on and over me is really, well, sort of what I think more of the Hickson style of just, okay, well, let's get the concept and more or less my first thing was just, hey, just figure out how to hold this position. Yeah, figure out how to keep two in or two out and and just get to that and not worry about learning, all the intricacies of De La Riva or 500 other open guard systems because that's not the way I like to approach anything. So really just, yeah, getting those concepts down and then things present themselves, either you find a transition or maybe you can throw into a triangle all of a sudden when they try and pass, the other thing, they come up. I have to be patient, I noticed, and just keep applying the principles and and then go from there. But I still love that, and I love going back to what you guys are all kind of teaching down the line here. It's just it's really nice to have that. Yeah, again, rather than having to go, oh man, I'm gonna have to spend the next half a year studying De La Riva and figuring out how to deal with that. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so that's yeah, it's been really good.
I think
So
if I'm engaging in the open guard from the bottom or the top, I think the thing that's heaviest on my mind is base all
yeah,
the time. Either keeping my base or disrupting their base, whether it's top or bottom, So if you can think of it like that on the bottom, like I remember Hickson used to tell me when I would struggle to do techniques or something, if I was trying to get some submission or some guard pass or some sweep, he'd say, stop trying to do that. Stop trying to sweep or submit. Just make the guy uncomfortable. Make him off balance. Make him feel pressure, like make him uncomfortable. He's going to give you something. He's going to want out of there. He's going to do some stupid mistake. And that's when you're ready to strike. You're
hmm
sitting there patiently, adding pressure or adding off balancing or whatever,
right.
waiting for that mistake, ready to capture it.
Yeah, I love the way of thinking like that so much more than again, yeah, figuring out 5,000 techniques because if you learn how to do that, then yeah, then you've got some answer in any spot you might be in, and then you just keep, working on getting that good feeling and, that sense of what's going on. And I found myself doing that the other day. I'm like, yeah, I got in a position, no idea how to escape it, but just kind of close the eyes and feel where the balance was until I found a hole and I went, oh, that way. I'm like, oh, that probably, I'm sure that's a move or something that I could have looked up or whatnot and tried to, memorize this technique. But it's just if you have a good concept and yeah, core of the core things, balance and all that, then yeah, it'll present itself and you can see it. So yeah, that's a wonderful thing that you guys are
I
teaching.
feel a little bit, I don't know, I maybe lucky that I don't remember Hickson teaching me more than one or two guard passes. It was like,
Nice.
and I'm sure he knew way more, and he couldn't. I just happened to learn those one or two,
hmm
and so a lot of my time spent trying to pass the guard was spent. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to do. Like I have these one or two guard passes. He shut that down. So now I'm just kind of putting weight forward and getting swept and stuff, and getting caught in things. And that whole experience, I think, trained my inner ear
hmm
to be very stable because I was just surviving, just trying to stay on top, not having any clue, not
Yeah.
trying to do some technique over and over. And
Right.
I don't know if that trained me as like, a child playing on a tightrope kind of thing would train them balance, without anybody teaching them some techniques or whatever.
Probably, yeah, yeah. That's just, yeah. I love that. I mean, I think yeah, especially in a world these days where there's more noise than ever, being able to just kind of bring it down to the simple things, and then you find your way through that, but just sticking to that core is really helpful because people can absolutely get lost. I mean, at least when I started training it was early on to like 2005. So there weren't that many videos and things out there where you could learn different techniques. So that was helpful. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, these days, I mean, there's so much. So I feel bad for people that get caught up and like, oh, I've got to figure this thing out in response to that and that and that and that. And it's just, I mean, you could lose your mind out there. Plus, the more time we spend online on these, video, now they got the shorts and everything, and he's probably just not doing good things to your brain after a
I
while.
have I probably have like 500 videos saved on my Instagram of jujitsu techniques that I want to try that I've never seen again. I've never
Yeah.
gone back and looked to it. Sometimes I'll scroll through. I'm like, today I'm gonna do one of these or two of these, and I'll look at the first few and I'll be like, okay, I'll try that one. And then
Yeah.
once the class is over, I'm like, oh shit, I forgot to try that thing. Damn it.
Yeah, there's a lot out there. So going back to your history, just so I don't want to not get around to some of the other stuff, even non-jujitsu related, but as since we're jujitsu people, we could nerd out forever on that. But so you're training, so you're teaching at Hickson's for a while, and then what? And then at some point you went off to Oregon. What prompted that?
So Crone took over the school at some point, and then we moved to Culver City from West LA.
Mhm.
And we were there for a while, and then at some point, Crone and I had a falling out, and I spent maybe, I don't know, another year or two in LA just training different places and teaching private lessons out of my house and stuff. And I think actually I spent another year doing that, and then I got into a really bad motorcycle accident that took me out of training for about a year. It
Uh,
really damaged my spine. I had like 5 disc herniations and 2 of them ruptured. And so, I was pretty beat up for a little while and just kind of recovering, doing physical therapy every day for months and months, and kind of told like jiu-jitsu is probably not going to be for you anymore now. And, I kind of let that just go in one ear and out the other and just went to work, swimming and healing my body.
yeah.
But in my mind, I'm like, I can still probably do jiu-jitsu, but I'm probably never going to be able to do it like I did.
Mm.
But just, like picking people up and slamming them to the ground and stuff like that. It's going to have
Awesome
to
put
be
it like that. Yeah.
a little less athletic now. And,
Hmm.
and so after spending a year recovering, I'm starting to do like college courses and things and having fun kind of branching out, thinking, what am I going to do since my body's all fucked up
Yeah.
and I gotta spread my eggs out a little bit into different baskets. And then my wife was thinking about her dad who lived in Oregon and how she had not been able to spend a lot of time with him. And he was up there running, or I guess he owned a cannabis dispensary with his nephew, with Chloe's cousin.
Yeah.
And he had the idea that we could come up there and spend time with him and start a farm, a cannabis farm. So I thought, well, I'm not really doing much jiu-jitsu wise here, just teaching private lessons and stuff. And I kind of am open to a change, and I want my wife to be able to spend time with her dad. And I am interested in learning another skill set or something. And so I thought, let's go up there and try it. And so we went up, and her dad bought some land, and we started a medical cannabis farm. And the next year, Oregon went recreational, I believe, and we transferred over to rec. And it was all a hassle and a pain in the ass. And our farming is hard work, but it was so rewarding learning how to grow stuff and learning about soil and compost and
You know
taking care
nothing.
of.
Did you have any background in that at all?
No,
Interesting. Okay.
no, but I love to read. I love to study. And so I just read, all the botany and agronomy and cannabis books and stuff. And
Mhm.
I took like soil microbiology courses with Elaine Ingham to learn microscope work and composting and soil creation and all this kind of stuff. And then I took courses in Korean natural farming with Chris Trump
Hmm.
and learned the ancient, Korean methods for
Cool.
pretty much no cost or super low cost farming and things,
Yeah.
and tried to apply as much of that to the farm in the hopes of becoming fully regenerative and fully closed loop,
Yeah.
so that we really wanted to leave the land better than we found it, as opposed to kind of standard agriculture, which rapes the land and destroys the soil and
Mhm.
probably contributes to a lot of the problems that people worry about with our climate and stuff. And so I think it was great to dive in there with family, which is not always easy, and
Yeah.
tackle this thing all with the grand hope of creating medicines for people who are dealing with cancers and other illnesses that cannabis can be really therapeutic for those,
Yeah.
especially my mother-in-law, Olivia. So, when she was going through it. So we were really kind of spending a bunch of money to R&D treatments for her and others. Her husband, Chloe's stepdad, Amazon John,
Hmm.
would spend, a real meaningful portion of his day-to-day life in his little garage lab with his HPLC machines, and all these like crazy, cannabinoid detectors and terpene detectors and things, and
Uh-huh.
just doing experiments and creating formulas and concoctions of different cannabinoids and terpenes, acidic, decarboxylated, all these crazy combos, trying to find the most therapeutic anecdotal evidence, I guess. Like, so he's just making stuff, giving it to people with problems, and
Mm.
then listening to their feedback and then adjusting, like,
Yeah.
constantly, forever. And he's probably sent, I have no idea. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of care packages to strangers who just reached out to us saying, "Oh, I saw you guys here or wherever, and I need help. I'm dealing with this cancer, or I'm dealing with, this other disease or whatever." And he would graciously go to work and make them a bunch of remedies and send them out to them and
Yeah.
just ask for their feedback. And we worked closely with a lot of the industry leaders in the cannabis field, like Deddy Murray in Israel, who's at Tech9 working on different cannabinoids and how they interact with different illnesses. And all of his research was super inspiring for us and
Yeah.
really gave us a lot of drive to want to make this thing happen. And we didn't really make a lot of money, really didn't make much money at all doing it.
Mm.
But
Mm.
we helped a lot of people with their illnesses, and I feel really good that through that endeavor, if we ever did have some, tragic event in the world
Mm.
where things really kind of slowed down or shut down and people were suffering and starving and all this kind of thing, I know how to purify water. I know how to grow food with no cost. I can feed this entire community that I live in almost by myself. And that feels like a superpower in that sort of environment, maybe even more so than knowing how to fight.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, that's a really fascinating area and something that I wanted to get into for years, but I heard about Joel Salatin, like many, many years back after reading Michael Pollan's books, and I went, wow, interesting guy.
Yeah,
And by the way, there's a film about him now, which I don't know if you saw it, The Lunatic Farmer, but they did a really good job on it. Like
I'll
they
check it
somebody
out.
finally did a good portrayal, and it's a great movie, documentary, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that stuff, and I find it so fascinating, and it's interesting that how few people do understand those things anymore. I mean, we've got nobody seems to like the giant monoculture and big farm, system that we have going on now, but very few people take the time to, like not many people are going to go off and try and learn how to do this stuff. So,
It's super painful, that transition
yeah.
for these, because I helped many chemical farmers transition to organic and even sustainable or regenerative, whatever you want to call it,
Hmm.
as much as they can. And oh my God, like the hit to the bottom line is hard
Yeah.
for a few years. That whole system has to recover. Just like me after the motorcycle accident, I mean,
Yeah.
that was rough, and these people are kind of like injured from all of this chemical warfare they've been doing. And so
Yeah.
they don't have any of the microbial buffer that an organic farmer would, to help them with diseases and pests and stuff like this. And so it becomes a real nightmare for them. And a lot of them give up and they go back to the chemical thing
Yeah.
and they have to spend a lot of money to maintain that sort of thing. And they never reach this Goldilocks zone of, oh, this shit's just growing itself.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny how far we've gotten away from just, hey, like, the old ways that nature worked and that's actually there was some wisdom to that. And if we can just do a cultivated sort of version of that, then you've really got something. And yeah, I'm glad there's still a few people at least working on that. There were certainly more, I guess of all the places I'd lived, Oregon probably had a lot more of that going on than a lot of places. It was easier to find also like organic foods and pasture
Mhm.
raised beef, that kind of thing. It was actually pretty simple to find. That I miss a little bit from other places that I've
Me
lived.
too. Yeah, here in Florida, I can't find raw milk and I can't find, like good quality produce. I mean, the fruit and stuff is amazing here, but
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time with some of the other like animal products and things here. It's not as
Yeah. It's
high
tricky.
quality.
We've got like one here. Luckily, they're attached to the gym. It's Pure Pastures. They're good people, and they've got a lot of things. But it is very expensive, and yeah, it's hard. And like even just here, well, in Texas, I mean, you grew up here. It's interesting to me that in New Braunfels, we don't even have like alternative type grocery stores. I mean, there's so many people here, but everybody's just at the HEB, which admit it, they've got a lot of things, but it can be tough to find like really high quality, yeah, organic or pasture. That kind of stuff is really still difficult to find. And I always thought that was going to come back a little bit more, especially during all the lockdown, years. I thought we'd see more of that returning because, people would just go, well, crap, like if the grocery store's having a problem keeping things in stock, maybe we ought to learn how to just even have just a small home garden, just a little bit of space,
Yeah,
something.
when I was farming, I was really evangelizing like everybody should have a little home garden, even if it's just like one pot with herbs in it
Yeah.
or one tomato plant,
Mm-hmm.
or even just a freaking aloe vera plant. Like everybody
Right.
should
Yeah.
practice taking care of a plant, how to water it and how to feed it and all these kind of things, how to transplant and stuff. And
Yeah.
it's just it's so good for you in so many ways, not just the activity and the meditation of it, but being in the soil and that microbial interaction is so good for your gut and for your brain and everything, and
Yeah.
just having that connection.
Absolutely. Yeah. I
And
still.
even people in apartments and balconies can do this. Some people say, "Oh, I don't have any space for that." No, you can. You can do it. You can put a freaking artificial light in your house and do it if you want to. That's the
Yeah.
only way.
It's definitely possible. My recently passed father-in-law, old Korean guy, and he man, he it was against all the HOA rules or whatever wherever he's at. Just had a little porch, but boy, he had like a jungle of just different fruits and herbs and different. I mean, it was amazing, and they were so healthy and stuff that he wasn't even supposed to be able to grow where he was living, but he made it grow, and it was amazing to see like how good he was at that. So it
You
was.
know if he was a natural farmer, like if he did KNF or
That is a
Jadam.
good question. I think he may have done some of that without knowing that he was doing it. He was kind of old school that way, I think, but I didn't get a chance, unfortunately, to ask him like, well, exactly how are you doing all. I know he wasn't using a lot of chemicals, so I didn't see any of that. So yeah, might have.
Korean natural farming is super fascinating. I love it. We go out into some virgin forest, that's like away from people and search the leaf litter in the ground for mycelium and grab that fungi and bring it back and start inoculating compost and putting it in rice, and trying to grow more of that beneficial fungi and then, adding that to the compost later and then creating these huge piles of bran and stuff where we can create what they would call like fungal seeds, where we're just
Mm,
using temperature to make fungi sporulate so we can take those spores and spread them all around in the soil and have this beautiful defensive, network in there.
yeah.
Some of these fungi, they'll straight up eat bugs that land on them. They just take them over. I mean, I'm sure you've heard of the zombie ants, that
Yes. Yeah,
fungi goes
of
and
course.
sends them up to the top of the trees to let the spores out.
Uh-huh.
Amazing what fungi is capable of. It's a fascinating little creature.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I have an interest in some of that as well. I used to studied a lot of Andrew Weil's work, and he got into it, and then of course Paul Stamets and all that. And so, yeah, and we did a special. I'm actually thinking about doing a non drug version of this, but we were joking. I think my wife primarily about doing a fungi, like a ghee, but like with a fungus sort of theme, and and so we do have a couple versions of like special edition geese that have, but it's more like on the psychedelic reference side. But I was telling Ben actually, who I work with, I was like, we got to do one with just the healthy ones who like enoques and lion's mane, whatever. We'll do a theme,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
that's super fun. But yeah, it's another one of those very interesting things. They're
I'm sure you've heard it before, but my favorite dad joke at the conventions, anytime somebody would come up and be like, "Hey, I'm a microbe guy too," and I'd be like, "Actually, I'm more of a fun guy."
Gotta have that there. That's awesome. Oh man. So you go up there and were you training at all at that point, or are you just kind of rehabbing or?
When I first moved up there, I wasn't ready to train yet, but I went and kind of poked my head into some of the schools, especially the ones that were close by my house. And the one that was closest to my house was an impact jiu-jitsu school run by the Chapmans, who are great people and, and,
Oh,
and
so
great
which
leaders.
were you at the Beaverton one or?
I did go to the Beaverton one from time to time, but I lived in Clackamas, and so they had a location out there in the middle of nowhere in Clackamas. And so
Yeah.
I went there and introduced myself and met Michael and some of his black belts, and they were so great and welcoming and stuff. And so as I felt better, I started to go and just kind of play a little bit and drill a little bit, and then slowly my body was capable of taking more, and I started exercising and getting back into like more athletic shape. And then they asked me to teach, and so I would teach one or two classes there while I was farming
Yeah.
a week, and it was great. I got to make a lot of friends there that I miss, and hopefully I'll get back there sometime soon and teach them all a seminar or something.
That'd be fun. I do miss the jiu-jitsu community up there, particularly. Of all the places I've trained and lived, that probably had one of the nicest like together like real community where there wasn't a lot of beef between the gyms necessarily, even though Impact had split off from SBG. I mean, maybe Matt was a little bit burned by some of that, but when I had a 40th birthday party there and I had people from probably six different gyms all hanging out, just having fun. Some people were rolling on the mats and having, it was like, but it was just it was a really great community. And yeah, I haven't been up there since I moved, but I miss all those guys up there and I miss the land was nice. I don't miss the weather much, but, I've become a very warm weather person.
That weather was terrible. Oh my
It's
God.
tough. I don't care how much vitamin D you take. I don't know. For me, it wasn't enough. It was killing me. So
So depressing and so dirty. Like, it's just like so wet and muddy all the time. And with dogs, the house is just filthy all the time. And it's just,
yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah. It's funny though. I don't know. I must have just barely missed you there too. I used to go to all the Sunday fun days at the Clackamas gym.
Did
Uh,
you really?
yeah, I did. So I was like, I was over there. Like that was actually, I probably did more of that than anything else because I would take some classes at Beaverton, but I was in this mode still of well, most of my later white belt years and early blue belt years, I was very much in like, I don't like, I just wasn't interested in what most people were teaching. So I'd sometimes go to class, but mostly I just wanted to roll and I wasn't listening very well. And so, yeah, so something like the open mat on Sundays was like,
You
yes.
remember what years you were doing this?
So that would have been like 2014 to like 2017 or 18 before we moved. And
Yes, I got there in 2016. So it was
okay,
probably late 2016 or 2017 when I started teaching at Clackamas, I bet.
probably right
So
about
I
when.
was probably just like
Yeah.
that close.
Probably. That's too funny. So then after that, we both have a yes. This is another one where we missed each other maybe by about a year because you ended up going down to moving down to the valley eventually, the San Ynez Valley, which is where I grew up. My first 7 years of my life or so, I moved there. Yeah, after leaving Oregon, just felt like I needed to kind of I don't know, just I was feeling a calling and yeah, I couldn't deal with the weather anymore. I went, you know what? I'm gonna go down here. Nice place to raise a family. The kid was still pretty young.
That
And
place is
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, it's just incredible. So and I still my heart it's still there. It's tough, but I just can't be there anymore. But
Yeah.
but yeah, but it's an incredible place and yeah, it's fun. And I took a break from training for about yeah, the whole time I was there, I ended up getting into golf because of my Korean step parent or excuse me, step parents, in-laws. And so they got me into golf and I went, "Oh, this is actually kind of nice. I've always wanted to train outside something, and this is kind of cool. I'm like a cultivated like Zen garden playing a sport, and if you're not the type that gets pissed off too easy, it's a lot of fun. I don't know, other people go out there, they get aggro. I don't get it, but
I love playing golf because of that environment, but I always take 20 balls with me.
yeah, yeah. I was like that for a little while. I learned from someone who was very much like it's kind of similar to maybe the Rickson Jiu-Jitsu style a little bit, but in golf where it was like this is the pure fundamentals, this is what it's really all about, and if you know these basic things, you can go figure out the rest and you'll be
Oh,
able
I'm gonna come take a lesson with you one of these days.
yeah, oh, it's really nice. I miss it. I've now gone full back hard into just jujitsu, and because frankly, the golf around here kind of sucks, and I don't know, the people that I was hanging out with are like, God, I miss the jujitsu people, and so I've gone back hard, but I don't want to lose that skill because I know someday too, when I'm, maybe if I finally do break my body enough that I can't train jujitsu anymore or it's hard. I'll get back to the golf a little bit.
I
So
remember somebody telling me when I was a kid don't waste your time with football and basketball and baseball. You're not going to be able to play that shit when you're old. You're going to be playing golf. Get good now, so by the time you're 60, you'll be stunting on all your buddies." I was thinking, didn't listen.
True, it's definitely a competitive and it's a difficult line. Dog straight down the door. All right, you guys, calm down. Um, anyhow,
What kind of dogs you got?
I've got a Great Pyrenees German Shepherd mix. She picks up her head. I was gonna show her. Hey, Astrid, where are you, baby?
Hey, pretty.
Astrid, head up, head up. There you go. Anyhow, she's a sweetheart. I've got her, and then I lost an argument with the wife about getting another small dog. I basically said I might, get divorced if you get another small dog. I can't handle it. They drive me crazy. And she got the dog, so I figured that was a sign. I'm like, all right, called my bluff. And so now we have
Your
a
breath of
Shih Tzu.
meaningless.
Yeah. He's a Shih Tzu Bichon mix, but he's growing on me. He's all right. He's a good playmate for the big dog, and it's funny as hell to watch them fight because we thought she was gonna kill him the first time. I mean, his whole head is in her mouth, and we're just going, oh, he's dead. But no, they play, and it's actually hilarious to watch because he kind of flips back and pulls some kind of weird guard, and then runs around, jumps at her ankles, and but they have a good time. So
Dogs are the best.
been good. I love them. Although Texas is a much rougher place for the dogs. But
It was hot.
yeah, it's just friggin' hot. Yeah, so it's tough. In the valley, you could bring them everywhere all the time, pretty much. I mean, it got hot there, as you know. But speaking of that, so you end up so you're training up there for a while, and you're doing the farming, and then you end up moving to the valley. And did you originally train there much? I noticed that I looked it up later, and I noticed you're affiliated with the gym there. But I didn't know, like, did you help start that, or was there because
You know, when I got there, I think it was maybe 2022 or something like that. I don't know. And my mother-in-law was kind of passing, on her way.
yeah,
And so for the first year or so that we were there, I didn't really do anything except kind of meditate for half the day so that I could be a battery of energy for my wife, who was acting essentially as a hospice nurse for her mother, and she was getting drained
yeah, that's hard.
like really hard, and she was suffering, and suffering a lot. Both her mom and her were suffering a lot. So I was just trying to be as supportive as possible for them. And I would from time to time I would go pop over to the jujitsu school, but I didn't really have time to be too involved. And then slowly, I think the owner of the school was kind of a little bit nervous of me, like this guy coming into town, like he's gonna open a school, he's gonna put me out of business or something, he's
Uh-huh.
kind of keeping me at arm's length. So I tried really hard to let him know I don't want to threaten you, I don't want to take away from you or anything. I just want to add, I just want to help and share my jujitsu, and I just love doing that. And he came around and then eventually kind of offered me a teaching position there, and so I would teach 2, 3 classes or something there a week, and some private lessons out of my garage or under a tree or something, my place. That's really great. And I think he was originally at Gracie Baja School, and then
That's what I was gonna ask. Okay.
I think he
Yeah.
ended up dropping that and kind of branded his own kind of thing called Allegiant Jiu-Jitsu there. And so I think they're doing pretty good. I hope to be able to maybe even get out there this month and give a seminar
Nice.
for all my old students there. Be
Uh,
fun.
that'd be cool. Yeah, that's funny. 'Cause when I first moved back there, part of the reason why I did take up golf and just took a break is there was no jiu-jitsu there. I would have had to go to Santa Barbara or at least Santa Maria, and it just I don't know. I wasn't up for commuting to train at that time. I went, maybe I'll just take a break for a little while, and I ran into golf and then became thoroughly obsessed with that. But I remember, yeah, when the Gracie Baja opened, and actually there was a school there. Not was really a school. There was more like an MMA gym kind of next door that they almost wanted me to try to help run some kind of open mat or something. But I just it was too weird. I went, no, I'm not doing it. But again, I missed you by about. I moved out about 2023, and actually I'd moved over to the hills of Lompoc for about a year starting 2022. So it's probably just barely missed you.
Oh,
Just kind of
so
fun.
were you training then, or were you just golfing
No,
then?
I still wasn't training, so I didn't start training again until we ended up moving to New Braunfels. My wife's from Texas, and I just wanted to get to a more sane state. Yeah,
Peaches. You
yeah,
got peaches.
yeah. There you go. Yeah, so there's a lot of good things around here, and somehow I just ended up in at picking of all the places that were nearby. I evaluated all of Hill Country, and I went to different towns. I went, you know what, New Braunfels just got something special. People are just really nice here.
Special. I would go camping on the New Braunfels River. Is that what they
And,
call it? No. Is it the New Braunfels
well, you've
River?
got, let's see, the Comal and the Guadalupe both intersect, kind of.
Guadalupe, yeah. I
Yeah,
think it was the Guadalupe we would go camp on. And sometime maybe the Frio. Is the Frio another one there?
might
River
be. I
around
still
there?
haven't learned everything.
Yeah, we'd go every summer and set up tents right along the river and do whitewater rafting and stuff. And that was like some of my favorite core memories as a kid. It was going to New Braunfels.
It
Such a
is
great
a
place.
really nice place, and I figured, okay, yeah, my kid's still kind of growing up, and she was like 9 when we moved out. I went, all right, it's not, it's the valley was really special and that was amazing, but I went, this isn't bad either, and maybe she'll learn some good values. I also was under the strange impression that every kid in Texas wasn't on devices much, and they were all doing sports and outdoors a lot. Not so much, I'm learning now, but but a little more than perhaps other places. And there's still like a there's a culture and a civility here that I think and a unity that I find is really interesting and cool about Texas that you don't find in a lot of places, especially California. It was breaking my heart watching the valley kind of turn on each other, the San Ynez Valley there, where especially during the lockdown years, it was like there used to be there still is kind of a good community there that watches out of each other. I mean, it's a small area. What if you combine the main towns, it's 30,000 people. And it was nice. And people kind of kept their politics to themselves. It was like, it was probably underlying kind of conservative family value, but nobody argued about it. It was fine. First couple times I saw a protester or two sitting out in the main gazebo area, and I went, this isn't going to go well. And then during the lockdown years, it was like everything just fractured, everybody split, and all of a sudden you've got neighbors wanting to rat each other out because they saw that, the guy owning, the grocery store or whatever didn't enforce wearing masks on everyone who didn't want to, and it got ugly. And I just went, oh God, I mean, it's still it breaks my heart because it's a gorgeous place. The land for me is always going to be that's where I want to be, but I just couldn't do it anymore. So.
I'm so grateful that we got to go through that lockdown and COVID while I was farming
Uh,
because I
yeah.
didn't even really notice, it's like I'm just on my farm. I'm
Yeah.
not dealing with all these crazy people on
Yeah.
either side
Right.
having their opinions on how other people should behave and whatever. And I just,
Right.
every once in a while, I'd have to go to the store and I'd just trip out on everybody's outfits and their quadruple layer masks and stuff. And
Yeah.
it was so crazy. The whole mask culture was so interesting to me and the psychology of it. Like I remember I went to a lot of cannabis conventions because we didn't only have the farm, we also had a company that sold like compost tea in a bottle kind of thing,
Yeah.
microbes, probiotics for your plant.
Yes.
And so I would go to the conventions and exhibit and talk about this product. And sometimes I would speak, at these things about regenerative farming or something. And it was funny, like during the lockdown, I went to several conventions around the country. And these are cannabis conventions, and some of them were, I guess, what would you call it, dry or, no smoking, but
Uh,
some of them were consumption
yeah.
event. And so at the consumption events, all the exhibitors and colleagues, wherever, we're getting together at certain times and standing in a circle and passing joints around.
Sure.
And some of these fuckers are in the circle wearing a mask. And when the joint gets to them, they would grab it, pull their mask down, take a hit, pass it, and put their mask back on.
Yeah, that's logical.
What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, I think that's what disturbed me more than anything else during that time period was just that I had finally gotten to a point in my life where I wasn't the cynical kid that I was in high school that was, or for the period I was there. But like I'd spent so many years just being the kind of like everybody's stupid, screw the world, like I'm just gonna smoke weed and fuck all you guys, and it's because everybody's an idiot. But I finally got to a point where I was like, you know what, people are all right, like they're just trying to, which is true. But I thought I've been underselling people. Maybe people are a little, smarter and more aware than I thought. But it was disturbing to me just to see when all this went down, how the independent thought level was just. I don't know. It was very, very minimal, and I just people from all angles would pick some mode of behavior, and it just had no grounding in any sort of reasonable logic. It was just kind of like, wow, okay, you guys are just full on groupthink from any direction, or or they just accept wild things as fact, or I don't know. It made me just feel like I was living in some kind of weird zombie world of some kind. It was yeah, that was not a that's not a fun
It
time.
it was a great time of regurgitating shit you heard other people say without really fully understanding it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but
I
yeah,
got a lot of
it's definitely interesting. I was glad I was in the valley though, because we didn't suffer from the same kind of you could somewhat ignore it there. You'd hear about more, and I had friends that would visit from LA, and they're like, "Oh my God, it's totally different." I can they could breathe all of a sudden because it was just everything was so.
Yeah, actually, I remember now as we got there, everybody in the valley was complaining about all the people from LA moving up.
Yeah. Well, they didn't used to. So we had a great spot there where, yeah, people would visit from all over, a lot of visitors from LA, and especially once the wine industry picked up, that was your tourist money. But they didn't think about living there because they all had to stay and work in Los Angeles and whatnot. And I can't move out there. But then during all of that, and when people started being able to work remotely, or they went, oh, whatever, I don't care, I'll just commute when I need to go in for something. It doesn't matter if I got to drive a couple hours once a week or whatnot. They
Yeah.
realized they could live there, and they realized that even though our housing rates were getting a lot higher for the valley, they were still a fraction compared to, even a shitty area in Los Angeles. So, and everybody started moving up, and I think it's getting to an unsustainable level where the culture of the valley is kind of getting overrun, whereas before it was like, oh, you'd kind of assimilate and learn a slower pace of life and a little more, I don't know, just old school, wholesome family stuff. And then, yeah, now it's just, I don't know. I worry, but we'll see. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But it's still, it's
It's
beautiful.
still a beautiful place,
Yeah,
and I've met some of my favorite people there, and I
yeah.
can't wait to go back there from time to time and continue sharing whatever I can with them and learning what I can from them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good stuff. Actually, now that I know that there's a good gym there that you're affiliated with, it makes it a little more like, oh, it'd be interesting to go back. And even if I ever got really rich, I would definitely have a home out there or something, or a little apartment or whatnot, and at least be able to go back regularly. Because yeah, it's just my heart is definitely there, and yeah, it's a beautiful spot for sure.
What do
So
you have in New Braunfels for training?
So I've got, yes, Straight Blast Gym, and then and that's in Texas, and there's a couple other gyms around, but they're not, I don't know, they just seem like some of them aren't that great, and other ones I don't know, I haven't been interested in cross training as much. I used to when I was up in Portland, I cross trained all over the place because of the company too. Everybody would kind of just let me train for free because I was sponsoring things and whatnot.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'd go from hanging out with Phil and Nathan at 10th Planet Portland, to going to Impact, to sometimes dropping by SBG headquarters.
I wish I got to train with Nathan. I think he went up to Seattle shortly after I got there. I never got to roll with him, but I
He
did get to train
did.
with Phil. He was
Now,
really
now I think he's in Alabama. I think he just moved over there or something. So yeah, yeah, he's just a great guy. He's a really, really good dude, and obviously great jujitsu player.
such an interesting style to go up against. As I always wanted to see what
Very
that would be
much.
like.
Yeah, he's like psychedelically inspired. Yeah, interesting, yeah, method for sure. But he's a super nice guy, and Phil's just a really, really good dude too. So
I've
yeah.
got friends in pretty much all the gyms up there, from SPG to Henzo to Impact
Mhm.
to 10th Planet. I mean, and my friend had just opened I think it's a nonprofit school in Canby, which is where I had
Huh,
my
huh,
jujitsu. I mean, I'm sorry, my cannabis farm.
yeah.
Um, And so, yeah, I think he's doing great work there in Canby with his school, helping out the local community and the kids and stuff. And I definitely want to go there and support him and teach there for him sometime too.
That's cool. It'd be fun. That's definitely great community up there for sure. Before I get to, I'm just realizing time. I could talk to. So let's get to where. So you go from the valley, and one of these days I got to ask you about how you rehab that back so well too. I've got all kinds of back and hip issues kicking up, and that's amazing that you went from that.
I've had hundreds and hundreds of hours of physical therapy.
Okay,
And I like to study, so I,
right.
I I I study this stuff too. It's not like I'm just doing this exercise that the guy told me to, because half the time they're full of shit.
Yeah,
PTs are tricky to find a good one.
I
And
know.
anything's
Yeah.
tricky. There's for 100 of anyone, there's one good one.
For sure. Yeah, I've been through a few here now, and I'm like, I'd say they were looking at me like, I don't know what to do with you, kid, because I just nothing they're doing is
And
really.
they want to fuse multiple vertebrae in my neck.
Uh-huh.
Put fusions in multiple spots. I told them to go fuck themselves. They
Yeah,
don't doing that.
that's
It's
cool.
crazy.
Are you pretty much fully mobile now and like more or less, or
No, my neck is not the best, and I have to train very consciously to not get stingers and be miserable for a couple weeks
yeah,
at a time, and possibly even just end my time rolling. So there's I got to be really careful, and I got to pick my training partner as well.
yeah,
I've been lucky here, to be working with Hickson, and everybody that comes through there, they're all super
yeah,
respectful. They're there to learn, and nobody's trying to prove any points or
right,
anything. And even I'll go get some rolls at a local gym here. There's a Hanato Tavares gym here that, he's great. I'll train with him, and he's a beast. He's still competing and kicking ass, and he understands my neck issues and stuff. So he'll go a little easy in those moments, and I appreciate
sure.
that. It's
You're in a
fun to
spot.
train with people like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because I actually I had asked Henry about that recently. I said, like you seem to be still doing this and not having a whole bunch of issues. And I said, do you do anything in your roles to try to make sure that you don't have problems? He went, yeah, I just don't ever put myself in a compromising position in my body. I'm like, well, okay, it's easy for Henry Akins and you can, dominate everybody from everywhere. But I am trying to learn
But
how
some people will
to
put
know it.
themselves in scenarios where you are relying on your partner's goodwill,
Mm,
when
yeah,
you're relying on their civility, and not really, maybe sometimes even considering what if they lose their balance? Like
yeah, right.
recently, I think this video has been going around where this kid's maybe in a closed guard or an omoplata or something, and the guy stands up, and the bottom guy's kind of balancing on the top of his head upside down. And the
Uh-huh.
top guy tries to like step his leg over, like the
Uh-huh.
guard pass, where
Uh-huh.
you throw your leg
Yeah.
over their chest and kind of move
Uh-huh.
their leg the way. He tries that, but as he takes his leg off the ground, both of their body weights compress on this guy's head, and they just like
Oof.
axially compress. His neck turns to the side, and all of their body weight goes down. And I'm like, oh my God, he must be dead. Like
Ooh.
he must have broken out. He's actually fine, I heard, which is incredibly insane. But what a perfect example of putting yourself in a scenario where something really, he could have died. He could have been
Yeah.
paralyzed. He just got lucky as shit if he is really fine after that.
Right.
He
Yes.
chose to do that because maybe he's gonna get an advantage or a sweep or even a submission or something at the possibility of being killed. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Like, it's not
There's
worth it, bro.
there are definitely some moments like I actually because of rolling with our mutual friend Ben one time, I was out at one of the Sunday open mats and yeah, I don't know. I was kind of in a sit up guard, and he sort of leapt into like I think I had my head down too far, so he leapt into kind of a weird just pressure down on the back of the neck and grabbing me, maybe for a guillotine. I don't even know what he was trying to do because it was so shocking. But my neck, I mean, something popped funny, and not in a way that I'd ever had my neck feel like it popped before. And I just went, did it stop? And I laid down, and it was first thing I was like trying to wiggle my toes. 'Cause I thought for sure I was paralyzed. I was like, oh, I'm screwed. Something must have broken. It's all over. This is gonna be and look, I was okay after a few minutes, but it was like that would scared the hell out of me because I went, oh, okay, I really gotta watch it. Like I need to not. ever, if I'm in a spot where yeah, I know that might be and of course, sure, you're training partners too, but just something to think about, like when you're exposing yourself, especially your neck, into a bad situation, like you need to either not do that or know when to how to get out of that immediately.
And also just not be belligerent inside of submissions. Like I remember as a white, blue belt or whatever, if you tapped to something that wasn't a choke, that was just painful, that was just
Right.
crushing your sternocleidomastoid muscle or something,
Sure.
people would call you a pussy, Be like, what are you
Right.
tapping? That's not, he didn't have that on right. Why are you tapping? He didn't even do that right. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I shouldn't tap to pain. And now here I am with like chronic neck issues. Obviously I had some major events, but my neck was already a little compromised, I think, before
Yeah.
cycle accidents and stuff. And so
Right.
it's just a cultural thing that's kind of dumb, a meathead mentality of, oh,
It
I don't
is.
pain, you should tap.
Yeah.
It's painful, you should probably tap.
Sure. And sometimes even when it's not painful, but you need to reckon, like I've noticed, like with my shoulders is where I have thought that it wasn't doing any damage, certain head and arms or
And then
other.
it's like, oh, I can't wash my hair today.
Yeah, and like all of a sudden, yeah, I remember that's what happened at the end of my time in Oregon. I was trying to pick up my kid, and I was like, I can't lift my hands past here. I couldn't. As soon as it came up here, I was like, and I went, oh great, and I finally got my rotator cuffs checked, and they're like, yeah, dumbass, you have like 30% of either rotator cuff left, and I went, oh, it's probably from that time when this guy was. I remember there was one black belt I trained with that ran a school up in well, I don't even want to say where, but anyway, he was actually such a bully though. The guy trained like he was I don't know, like he was in the Mundials for every role, and even when he was training
Those are
with
the worst.
yeah, and I didn't understand it. It's the only time I'd ever really run into a black belt that did this. Like, what are you doing, man? Like, we're just, student anyhow. And but he was trying to show some kind of weird submission where it was just compressing, like just your arms over here, and you just kind of lean into the guy,
Yeah.
and it never worked on me. So I'm going, and so all the students were trying on me, and I'm like, I could sit here all day. What are you doing? I mean, yeah, that pulls a little bit, but I'm like, doesn't hurt. Like you're not gonna choke me. And so finally, then he's trying to do it on me. He's like, "Well, let me see. I'm gonna show you." And he's just shoving in there, and it really didn't work. But years later, I'm going, "Oh, I bet that was like the start of this freaking tear." Because it didn't really. I wasn't trying to be tough. It just didn't seem like it was doing anything. And yeah, so you got to watch out when you're training. I've realized, like, just if you think it might be tweaking a joint or doing something, maybe you don't want to be there. And if you get a
I
tap.
love having access to people like that. I hate being forced to train with them all the time, So
Yeah.
like
Right.
coaches out there, you need to protect your students from that fucking guy who only
Yeah.
has the one speed of 150%.
Hmm.
But it's great to have that guy in the room. So on those days when you feel good and you want to kind of test
Yeah.
yourself, you don't really care about that person's well-being because they don't care about yours.
Yeah.
Then you can have a more realistic kind of engagement, a little bit of a test maybe, or kind of an in-house tournament sort of thing against that fucker.
Yeah. That's true. I
I used
would.
to have a I used to have a rule back in the day for people like that. If it was like because I'd travel around and teach seminars and just go train in different places and whatever. And if the first time that I roll with somebody I just met, they try to kill me, I'll give them one more chance. One more
Yeah.
chance. The next roll you try to kill me again, on the third roll, you're getting thumb behind the jaw here. You're getting knee on the neck. I'm going to be
Yeah.
using your nose to move your head
Yep.
around. I'm going to cause a lot of pain for you, and I'm not going to put you in a submission. I'm just going to cause pain for
Yeah.
the entirety of the round. I'm not going to give you a chance to tap.
Yeah.
I'm just going to make you not breathe, like
Yeah.
torture time. Like you fucking rude motherfucker.
Yeah. I had an incident like that recently at a training camp. I won't even get into where, but it was shocking that people were going that hard. And then yeah, I did the same thing. It was like the first two, I went, oh, okay, let's just see. Maybe he's just excited. Third, I was like, I'm done. Like I don't, this is getting ridiculous. Like so.
Totally fine to try to win training from time to time, but people that try to win training all the time are the worst.
Yeah.
You just don't get it.
Yeah.
They're never going to get good. They'll get tough. Those guys are always tough.
Oh yeah.
They're
Yeah.
not good.
Yeah.
None of them are ever good.
Yeah, no, I know, and I get it. I know I spent too many years mostly trying to be tough. Although I'm not an aggressive type, so I guess I never really did that. But I definitely was mostly concerned with just surviving open. That's whatever. But now I'm learning a lot better because I actually decided I'm like, all right, I don't want to be a blue belt for, 10 years like I was a white belt practically. So really
Mhm.
trying to like, and suddenly I'm learning better. And it really helped that Henry was there and that all these things were like the first person coming to a seminar was, well, Matt, and then Henry right after him. So I was like, oh, great. I haven't seen Henry in years. And that kind of getting back in touch with, his jujitsu coming down from Hicks and all that, like really helped get me, like really got me to come start being back in the gym and training again because I was still playing golf here pretty much every day and I went, I'll go in a little bit, just it's probably good because I have a business that's obviously jujitsu related and I should just go in now and then. But then it shifted and I really fell back in love with it, and it's really largely because of all these things that Hickson's passed down and all you guys who are getting it out there. So yeah, and it's good to hear that he's still getting things done. Sounds like you're privy to some new, maybe even some new information that'll get passed along too. So you go from the Valley then, and then how did you end up kind of reconnecting with Hickson there?
It had been a little bit since we had even spoken, and my father-in-law has a friend who's a big time movie producer, and the movie producer reached out to him wondering if he could, through me, contact Hoist because he wanted to do a docu on Hoist or something. And so I said, well, let me call Hickson and see if he'll give me Hoist's contact. And so um, I was like, I've been wanting to reach out to him, but it had been so long. I was feeling nervous. It's like I hadn't spoken to him in a while, and he's gonna wonder like why the hell I'm calling or something. It's just that weird thing. Oh, now I have a reason. So it's like okay, I'm gonna call him and talk about it.
Yeah.
And so when I called him, we got to talking, and I totally forgot about the hoist thing and didn't even mention it. But he was like, I was like, let's get together, and he said, come down. I was up in the valley in San Ynez, and he said, come down to LA and let's hang out and I'll teach you some stuff and we'll reconnect and whatever. And then while I was there, told him about the hoist thing and I told him he should really do it on you. You're the more interesting one. But
Hmm. True.
that I'm not sure if anything ever even came of that, but once we met and we reconnected and had a good time and chatted or something, then he hit me up a little bit afterwards, called me and asked me if I was interested in coming to Uke for him there in LA for his lessons. Because I think at that point, the Parkinson's was starting to progress a little bit and it was becoming a little more difficult for him to demonstrate certain movements. And he was getting ready to have a hip replacement too. So his mobility was pretty challenged at that time. And I think he wanted the students to be able to feel some of these things that he wasn't at that time really able to show that feeling anymore, which must be really fucking frustrating for him, I bet.
Yeah.
Um, so I said, yeah, I would love to, but I'm a couple hours away, so I don't know how often, but I would come down, maybe once or twice a week or something, and help him with a lesson, and then he said, hey, I'm going to Florida. Are you interested in continuing this there?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, that sounds like a crazy huge honor for me, any of this, for you to even offer me this. Like, who am I? And I'm nobody. And and so I said, let me check with my wife. And at that point, her mom had passed there in Santa Ynez, and she was kind of struggling with what to do and didn't really enjoy, I think, the valley because it's so slow paced and she didn't really have many friends there. And so I think she felt a little lost and was just in a position where she was open to some more change,
Yeah.
get away from this place where her mom passed away and all this. And
That's
so
yeah.
she was the one, like it was kind of up to her. And she said, yeah, sure, let's go try something new again. And
Uh,
so I called him and said, yeah, let's do it. And spent a few months kind of tying up loose ends, and now here we are. We've been here since February. We're just entering into hurricane season, yay! and
yeah.
all,
It's a
all the
little
heat.
different.
Yeah,
Hey, at least you don't
what
have
that's like.
to. That's cool though. What are you? Is it more like southern Florida or?
I guess it's Central Florida. So we're in Vero Beach,
Okay.
which is maybe an hour north of Palm Beach, I
Okay.
think.
Yeah, I
Hour
think
and
I
a half,
kind of know
maybe
what.
hour and a half north of Palm
Yeah.
Beach.
Yeah, I've got some
Sort
relatives.
of kind of almost up to Orlando kind of
Okay. Okay.
that.
Yeah, I've got some relatives that moved up to like the villages or whatever. It's a little past Orlando, but they were all my half brothers and sisters went from the valley over to Florida up there. So sometimes I go say hi out there. But yeah, that's interesting. A little different. So you don't seem to have a problem with moving around to different locations a lot as
No, not really. I
yeah.
kind of like changing it up from time to time.
It's cool. I do the same. Although my wife's about ready to kill me, I think one more move and I'm getting a knife in the night. It's just gonna be over because she's just like, can we just please settle down for a minute? I'm like, babe, I'm just always trying to find like something a little better or a little thing. And especially as our kid grows up, I'm like, it's kind of important that she's in different spots. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
I gotta quit moving around. So damn
Yeah,
much.
I moved around a lot as a kid, and it was pretty disruptive for me, so it'd probably be a good
Yeah.
idea to stay put for the kids' sake.
Right, I know. I'm gonna try to do that. I'm also gonna do it from the sake of my training as well, because I noticed that when I started, when I first started, it was like a couple years in the same place, and I was growing. And then when I started moving around, it was like, I didn't have any one particular teacher or any one school, and it just yeah, I kind of just floundered for many years.
Yeah.
That's probably why it took me so dang long just to get to the blue belt. I was almost given it by a friend who was just tired of. He's like, this is ridiculous. How are you still a white belt? It's been like 8 years. Like, just come train with me for 6 months. I'm just gonna hand it to you because this is getting stupid, But yeah, it was. But it definitely wasn't helping my training or learning. So yeah. So curious. So do you think like Hickson has now because of his condition and whatnot, maybe even refined things further and found even more efficient and
Absolutely.
yeah.
Oh, absolutely. He's had to because I think his weakened condition has even shown him where sometimes these techniques are more difficult. And well, shit, like I used to be able to do this easily, and now this is difficult for me. How can I modify this so
Hmm.
that even me or even uh, a 10-year-old girl can find at least a higher level of success with
Yeah.
these things against stress and resistance and whatever we encounter there.
Yeah.
So tons of improvements. I think I don't know, like the first few weeks I was here, we taught a class, and then after class we were kind of hanging out after they had left, shooting the shit or whatever, and we were out on his back patio, and then he just started like grabbing me in a headlock or something and asking me what I should do. And then, I'm doing the move like I've done 1,000 times because he would teach this stuff a lot when I was coming up.
Hmm.
And then halfway through the move, I'm trying and like, fuck, I can't move your arm. Like I don't know. And I tried it. He's like, try again. And I try again. And the same problem. I can't move this arm. Like, what? I've always been able to do this. And now this is not working. And I feel fucking retarded. He's like, okay, try me. And then like, just like one little movement, it's such a dumb, tiny little thing all the time. Some
Yeah.
small little shift or whatever. It's
Right.
not crazy. A change of a grip,
Yeah.
a movement of the wrist. So wild. And
Yeah.
then now I can't make him fail, and I'm stronger than him at this point, right? And I still
Sure.
can't make him fail. And so then I try it and works perfectly. And I'm like, man, that's the coolest thing I've learned in years. Just this little thing. And he's like, really? Almost like, oh, that's sad.
Uh, that's cool though. It's interesting because I look forward then to like another wave of new small things that might change the landscape of jiu-jitsu even a little bit more. I mean, because I don't know. I feel like I don't know if a lot of the other guys that are at least getting some of this stuff out there, like Henry and whatnot. I'm not sure he's getting any of the current updates. I don't know if I keep forgetting to ask him if they talk or anything like that. So
I'm
you've
not
probably
sure that
got
they still
yeah,
communicate anymore. But
yeah,
Henry's pretty talented, and he'll probably make his own tweaks and improve things a bit. But there's no one like Hickson, and
yeah,
he's just a genius. He'll deny it, but he's like an absolute genius when it comes to this stuff, and it's apparent. when he problem solves, especially when he problem solves with things that I know he's never seen before.
Yeah.
And then he's like, he'll look at it and he'll watch you and he'll ask you to do it several times and he won't really react or defend or anything.
Hmm.
And then he'll be like, okay, try again, and then you'll just like not be able to do anything.
Yeah.
And like on his first try of defending it,
Yeah.
after thinking about it for watching it for a minute or so, he's just already figured out in his mind how to defeat it, and his body already knows how to do it. And I think
Yeah.
what's frustrating for him now is that his mind is telling his body to do things and his body won't cooperate, and it's like, fuck,
Yeah.
that's got to be such a bitch to
Yeah.
go like
That's
that.
that's got to be hard. Well, I imagine then he's
But he
probably.
won't let on about it, he's just always in a positive positive mindset, always
Yeah.
moving forward, facing the challenges with grace and stoicism, and it's super inspiring to be around that all the time.
Yeah.
Makes me feel like I have no excuse for bitching about anything.
Absolutely right. And we all need those reminders. That's excellent. Well, that's really great. I just what an interesting little journey you've had going on there and path and
It's so cool though to see like most of the people that come are black belts. We'll have, not black belts come from time to time, but most of the people that are willing to invest that much in a lesson have been in it for a long time.
yeah.
And a lot of them outrank me. And a lot of them are really talented and really good, but their mind is blown, of course, by these really simple little things that we can do, especially when it comes to the self-defense stuff. Something as simple as I'm on top of you and you're closed guard,
Hmm.
and you try to touch my face, right? And so we'll tell these guys that have been training maybe 10 years longer than me, some of them. Okay, it takes him to say, James, get in his guard. And, or no, he'll tell the guy, get into James's guard. Okay, guy, don't let James touch your face. And, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
and they're doing whatever they can and trying to use the stuff that they've learned and finding, low levels of success. And then it's just like, okay, now watch this, and it's
Mhm.
something so simple, just adding your weight in the right spot and understanding, maybe how to use your elbows or something simple. And instantly these guys are just like, oh my God, like you can't touch my face at all. And I'll start really slow, right? And in the span of like less than 60 seconds, I'll be like
Yeah.
trying as hard as I can to
Right.
touch their face, and then it's just like I'm getting exhausted. I'm like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
And now Hicks is like, okay, do it on the other three. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Still a job. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad he's just in general that that's being kept alive, some of that thinking, because I noticed for a while, especially right before I took a break, it was like so much of that was going out the window, just the jujitsu, but understanding to use it as a martial art still, to think about, oh, in that position, are you vulnerable to getting kicked in the face, punched in the face, whatever, it just,
Or are you vulnerable to someone pulling a knife out of their pocket and shanking you?
right.
Like, I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. Because I know for
a lot of
me,
a lot of modern day students don't even think about those kind of scenarios. They've never
yeah,
really even seen a possibility of that happening to them, and what a wonderful life to feel so safe and stuff. But
right.
um, just
Yeah.
better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in war or whatever, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's good to be prepared for that. I still always try to think about that when I'm rolling, and actually my most frustrating moments are when I get caught in some position where I'm going, "Oh, I don't know how to get out of this," but I'd be getting rained down punches, and those are the ones I go back and go, "All right, I got to figure something out here." But luckily I came from, since we were training MMA when I started, I had that in my head already because sometimes we would train jits with hits and other, and I was doing striking and whatever else. So that helped. But a lot of these guys that I've run into now, especially just got into recently, if they, if the school doesn't promote that line of thinking, they just never occurs to them at all. And they're spending all these hundreds of hours on techniques and a style that, yeah, if they tried to pull that even on a somewhat uneducated street fighter, they might be in trouble, and that's that's unfortunate. I hate to see that. So yeah, well, either way, so thanks to you and obviously most thanks to Hickson and everybody else that was out and keeping all the good knowledge alive. So
Thankful he's touched a lot of people and he's influenced a lot of black belts to really adopt his program sincerely.
yeah,
And through those people, I think Jiu-Jitsu has a chance to avoid the path that Taekwondo and karate and kung fu and those kind of things have taken in this country. I have
yeah,
no doubt that if you go to Korea, you can go to a Taekwondo school and get your butt kicked easily.
mm,
But in this country, it's pretty hard to find a Taekwondo school that's going to kick my butt, I think.
yeah.
Maybe there's a Taekwondo out there that's going to come get me now. I don't know. But
Yeah,
Jiu-Jitsu's heading the same way, especially as more money gets involved with it. Money's flying into Jiu-Jitsu right now.
yeah,
And we're going to see more and more McDojos, if you will, all over the place.
yeah,
And eventually, I think still right now, if you say you're a Jiu-Jitsu black belt, that holds some weight. People are like, oh, but
yeah.
eventually it'll be like, oh, cute, my 8-year-old girl, my 8-year-old daughter is a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu too. Like
Right.
one day that rule of you have to be
Yeah,
18 or whatever will probably go away because somebody wants more money or something.
right. Yeah,
Hopefully through Hickson and his organizations that he's involved with and some of the grandmasters and stuff will safeguard our
yeah.
our martial art from those sorts of pitfalls, but I wouldn't count on it.
Yeah, it's tough. I like to think everybody's in pursuit of, the truth and, the best way of things, but yeah, it's not, unfortunately, not always the case. So, but at
No, not
least,
even the majority, I think.
yeah, well, again, something I learned in the lockdown, but yeah, it's at least as long as you guys are out there and the light it can be found, then that is that's a great thing because people will find it, and yeah, hopefully it will preserve the goodness and keep jujitsu alive and healthy.
Some of these guys are doing cool projects. Like I have a student in LA named Joe Mendoza who's working on like a kids self-defense kind of program that he wants to put into schools and such. It's a nonprofit thing called the JAB program. I think it's Jiu-Jitsu Against Bullying or something
Uh,
like that.
uh,
So
yeah,
it's great. I want to support stuff like that. That's giving back to the community and helping out the ones that are the most vulnerable and things. And so he's sharing Hickson style jiu-jitsu with those kind of vulnerable, less um, privileged people.
yeah,
I love that. So go
yeah.
support Joe if you can,
Cool.
and then anybody that's looking for Hickson style techniques and stuff, there's a lot of people out there that are sharing great things. Like you mentioned a few of them, and I'm available from time to time when Hickson doesn't need me to move around and do seminars, and
Nice.
people can come here and do lessons with me too if they can't get in with the grandmaster.
Sure. Good stuff. Yeah, I know you're not you post about as much on social media as I do, I think. So where
Yeah, I don't
yeah,
like it. I need to do more. I need to start making like technique content like Chris Burns does, like
yeah,
people really love that stuff and he does a really good job with it and has a cool team around him for that. And it's
that
just so hard
helps.
for me to find an uke and a cameraman at any one time when I feel like showing something. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do it.
Yes. Yeah, you may have to just at some point maybe it'll all fall into place. But yeah, it is tricky. It's kind of what you need. I know even me, I used to do video productions as a for a living before I started Datsusara, but I don't even do my own videos now because I just can't. It's just not my thing. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to have to post online. Even just doing the podcast, I've got to do some of that, and I'm like, geez. But I
Mhm.
love the conversation. So
You guys
yeah.
have the best gear. I remember Ben showing me a bunch of your gis and bags and stuff like that, and it's all made from hemp, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, pretty much as much as we can. I'm trying to do even more because there's always these components in the bags and other things, especially not the geese so much, those are 100%. But in the bags, like we always have to use plastic in certain areas or polyester and I'm really, really trying to like even further eliminate that. But it's tough, as you know. Like, well, you probably know, hemp is extremely expensive, especially compared to buying like even just regular cotton. But certainly poly, it's probably 10 times as expensive as polyester. So, yeah, it's tough. But we're working on making them more and more natural all the time, but still keeping the functionality and the quality that we have. So.
Do you guys grow your own hemp or do you outsource that? You buy
No,
that
I wish. No, that's all really the only really commercially viable place to get hemp from,
from
especially
Canada?
textile China. Yeah, and that's it.
China.
Yeah, China's it. I mean, it really is. Like I didn't. You
Not even Canada. I thought Canada was growing a lot of
Canada's
hemp.
got a ton for food, but I have yet to see any textiles come out of Canada. And I know there was a company that a few years ago I heard about some people that were like, "Oh, we're going to do a big investment. We're going to start making textiles." And I went, "Oh, great." Never see it happen. And I've talked to so many people, there's a lot of hemp, farmers out around the states that go, "Oh, or even just regular recreational cannabis farmers like, we're throwing away all this stuff. Can you do something with it?" And I went, "Yeah, if I was a textile engineer and I had a couple $1 million for equipment and then could hire all the people that understood how to process it, yeah, maybe. But I've got a feeling that there's some cost prohibition because I mean, what we pay for it, even coming out of China, is extreme. We're talking like some of our stuff's like $15 a meter. So
Have
it's
you guys been hit with the tariff kind of
a little
issue?
bit, yeah. So I mean, here and there. It's weird because in the former, like in the first Trump administration, we were able to get an exemption actually because we were, I said, look, we're a small company, we've got nowhere else to go for this, and I would love to bring it all here, but I can't. And they gave us an exemption. Through the next administration, we couldn't get anything, and currently we can't get anything. But it's such a from day to day now, it's so volatile. We don't know where we're going to be at, but it hits us, but I'm mostly just eating it as much as I can. So yeah, it's tricky. I mean, it's probably a little bit like your cannabis farm business. I'm not getting super wealthy off it. Luckily, my wife had like a real career and a real job, so that kind of helps. But I manage and I've got a lot of free time, that's kind of what I wanted. Like the dots is I just want to be able to pursue what I really care about, and I do very much care about the company. But yeah, the profit, it'd be nice to have more, but we manage, and the quality of the product is what's really super important to me. So we keep that going. And now I'm on a bit of a mission. I'm going to start trying to educate people about the real dangers of polyester beyond the environmental level, because when I came back to jiu-jitsu, one of the things that really pissed me off is that I started looking at like people selling the current gis, and even in the gis now, they're like polyester blends, and it drives me up a wall because we now have really good science to confirm what I had suspected, which is that it's not just plastics in our food that might be harmful. When you're wearing polyester, sports fabric clothing, whatever, sports performance stuff, I mean, you're exposing yourself to a pretty high level of toxic chemicals. Yeah, and it does get absorbed. It does cause problems, lower sperm count, testosterone. It's just it's going to screw with, a lot of things, and maybe even, to the level of causing cancers. So,
I threw out all my fancy underwear and bought regular old cotton Amazon Basics undies.
yeah, yeah. It's funny how even that's getting harder to find. It's like, man, everything, like, it's just, they always sneak in some polyester. I'm like, I get it. It's cheaper. You don't need to iron anything. You can do cool prints on polyester. But yeah, it drove me crazy when I saw it in the gis because I went, man, the only reason we're wearing these is mostly tradition and a little bit because, yeah, they soak up sweat a little better, but it's mostly a traditional thing. I mean, I'd even come up with a new martial arts uniform. It never caught on. That was more of like, okay, it's like if you were wearing actual street clothing, but it's made tougher so people could train in it. But yeah, nobody cared about that. So still playing training in the gis, but then you start doing them with polyester, and I'm just going, why? Like now you're poisoning yourself. You're bad for the
Gross.
environment. Yeah, and it just seems terribly wrong to me. So even
I
some.
wonder if people would be interested in a Rickson Gracie edition hemp Datsusaragi.
It would be pretty cool. The very first gis apparently were made of hemp. So from what I was digging back in research, and the old first judo gis and stuff, yeah, they were apparently hemp. But yeah, hey, if I'm sure people would be. So if that's something that you want to run by him, and I certainly would love to. Would love to produce that. That would be pretty cool. Get back to the pure core of things along with the person who's doing it.
He gave me so much value in my life. I want to try and give back to him for the rest of his and his
Yeah.
wife, so that I want to try and create opportunities to make money that I can
Yeah. Help him out.
send on.
It would be great. I think I would love that to see that for him as well. Because sometimes, oh, he's, trying to get the Jiu-Jitsu global, God, what is it? It's the Global Federation.
Jiu-Jitsu Global Federation, yeah.
Okay, I can't even remember, but it's like it's there, and I know I signed up and stuff, but I'm like, I wish more people. I wish there was something where we could all support a little bit more and kind of like differentiate ourselves. Okay, this is what we're trying to do here, and the path, and yeah, and just kind of
I'm uh I'm all ears for the creative ideas from people because I am not a creative, and
yeah,
like people like Hickson, they're just
no, he's
uh,
it,
so focused and good at their craft, and I
yes.
think I'm kind of like that too, a little one-dimensional in that way. So I need some more creative types to come around and guide me on this business piece of
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, if I think of anything, I'd love to talk to you about it. Yeah, and it would definitely be interesting. And if not, I might even know some people that are better at that than me. My biggest weakness has always been my marketing. I absolutely
Yeah.
terrible at it. So, but
Spent my whole life thinking of marketing and business as dirty words, and now I'm just coming
right.
around. These are necessities, you need to know how to do this stuff. It's not just, I used to think of it as like, how am I going to convince people that I'm the best or better or whatever? And it seems so cocky and arrogant. And now it's like, well, actually, just people would benefit from this or another product like it, but they don't know about it, and they need to understand that it exists.
Yes, yeah. If you can look at it that way, I think it makes it an easier pill to swallow. But it's definitely tough, especially when you've got to run ads with maybe, I don't know, like I don't really think people should be spending much time on social media. It's clearly not good for them. But I know that if I want to run ads and find people, oh, I'm gonna have to give money to the social media company to get the word out. So it's a bit of a catch, but yeah, one that you got
At
to.
least Zuckerberg's kind of one of us now, I guess. I don't
Yeah,
know
I
if
guess so.
it's
That's kind of
possible.
interesting. Yeah. Uh, awesome. Well, let me wrap it up because I could talk forever, but people are probably I'm stretching attention spans and bladder capacities right here. So, but yeah, hang around for a minute and I'll talk to you some more. But yeah, thank you so much for being on, and thanks for everything that you're doing to preserve all the good stuff in jiu-jitsu and beyond.
I appreciate the talk, brother. Nice to meet you.
Awesome. Likewise.
Better to have a short life that is full of what you like doing than a long life spent in a miserable way.